Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you that will help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. Today's video is based on a request from somebody who was asking me if I would make a video about how to handle self-judgment, poor body image, being particularly critical of ourselves. So I thought I would make a video on how to improve body image. And this isn't going to be these sort of surface level tips that you often see in a meme on Instagram. This is not about just love yourself, just practice self-compassion and kindness. All those things are great, but they only scratch the surface. So in this video, I go really deep and I really look at the how to actually do it. So many people have a lot of advice out there, but they're not suggesting ways and methods of how to actually do it. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it useful. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and feel free to leave a comment below. I always have a look at the comments. So let's begin. First of all, what is body image? Let's just very quickly make sure we're on the same page. Body image is how you think and feel and perceive your body or about your body. So a good body image means you feel relatively comfortable, peaceful, maybe confidence might come into it. And a poor body image would involve a lot of judgments, a lot of negative feelings about it, a lot of really critical thoughts. And so, first of all, the solution to improving body image and feeling better about yourself is really simple. The implementation of it is a little bit harder. And the answer to better body image is simply to stop believing everything you think. We have these thoughts all the time. We have that voice in our head that narrates our lives and talks about whether we like something or we don't like something, whether this was good or we were bad, and that goes on. And the quality of that voice, that narration that goes on in our head, often determines the quality of our life. If you have a very critical voice in your head, then lots of areas of your life could be particularly challenging, not just food. We often make the mistake of thinking or believing that when we're having a thought, we're just realizing something that's true. So if you were to catch sight of your reflection and a negative thought pops up, like I don't know, my stomach looks massive, or my legs are too big, or whatever area of your body you tend to focus on the most, you have a thought that pops up. What you think is happening is that you're just realizing something that's true. You think you are just noticing how big your stomach is, or that your legs are too large, or whatever it might be. So you think you are realizing something that is objectively true, rather than you are making a judgment about it, this is your opinion about it, and that there are many other options and many other different ways of looking at whatever it is you're looking at. In this case, we're talking about your body. Not everybody who looks at your body is going to have the same thoughts and judgments that you do. In fact, they won't. Because if you're watching this video, you're probably someone who's particularly harsh about your body. But we fall into the trap again of assuming that other people think in a way that's more similar to us, and they just don't. There are so many different ways of looking at something, and we tend to have the same thoughts over and over again. So in order to be able to stop believing what we think, we need to develop the skills maybe, to one, be able to watch ourselves think. As far as we know, we're the only creatures on the planet that can do that. We have the ability to watch our thoughts. We're not completely in them. Sometimes we are, if we're in compulsion, we're completely being run by our programs and by our conditioning. But when we're aware, we have that sense of freedom and a sense of choice. So we need to increase awareness when it comes to how we're thinking about our bodies. And then the second part of it is developing the skill of thinking greater than you feel. What tends to happen is our thoughts and our feelings, they line up. So our thoughts match our feelings and our feelings match our thoughts. And when those two are in alignment, that's our truth. Like no other possibility exists to us in that moment. We are convinced we know what's going on. And I'm here to say that often we don't. And to a large degree, we create our reality. And a lot of these thoughts that we have, that we think are things that we are realizing, are really opinions that have been taught to us. So particularly around body image, you know, our culture and our society has a huge amount to do with that, about what's the ideal. And then people close to us, like in our lives, you might hear people talking about their bodies or what they think about your bodies. That all has an impact as well. And then you have your own thoughts about your body. And we're environmental beings. We can't help but be influenced by our environment, but it's really helpful to know, or to at least contemplate, where the environment might end and you actually begin. So if you were to wake up tomorrow, for example, and the ideal beauty standard for society was exactly what you are, if it was like your body size, your body shape, your weight, your skin colour, your hair colour, your eye colour, if all of that changed so that the ideal was exactly how you look today, do you think you would still be having the same thoughts about your body? Probably not. You'd be influenced by that, just like you've been influenced the other way. And people around us, like caregivers or people that we're close to in our lives, have a huge amount of influence on us too. But they're influenced by culture and society and what they've absorbed, and also what they absorbed from their past and their history and other people in their lives. So we all end up kind of feeding each other a lot of the same beliefs. So even when something just seems so true because everybody else is still believing it, is it really true? We need to question perhaps what we think about truth. So if we think about how do you watch your thoughts, when you're in that moment where you are having a lot of negative thoughts about your body and you're feeling it as well, so in your mind everything is just terrible. So one of the things I do is I do recognition statements, which is really helpful. And you split, what you want to do is you're trying to gain a meta perspective of what's going on for you in the moment. In this case, you're having a bad body image moment, you're having a lot of self-judgment. So you start off, the first part of the recognition statements is that you recognize the objective circumstances of what's going on. So you start your recognition statements with I recognize I. And do these out loud if you can, or take a pen and paper and write them down. Because we're trying to externalize and watch ourselves, to keep it in our heads, I just think it doesn't work very well. But even just speaking it out loud quietly to yourself so that you hear yourself, I think can be really powerful and help this to be more impactful. So the recognition statement of the circumstances would be like, I recognize I am standing in front of the mirror. That is an objective truth if that's what's going on. And like 100 people could look at that and say, yep, that's definitely what's going on. If you were to say something instead like, I recognize I am not liking what I see in the mirror, again, that's a bit more subjective. So we're talking about just the bare basic facts that no one would dispute. So like, I recognize I'm looking at myself in the mirror. And then you go on to your feelings. So this is kind of checking in with how your body feels, and it's probably going to be feeling quite uncomfortable in that moment, which is great because it's an opportunity to try and pinpoint what these feelings are that keep coming up for you again and again, because they'll be the same feelings that are coming up again and again. And the more you get to know them, the more you can name them quicker and kind of separate yourself from them. So you're seeing yourself have an experience. So it would be, I recognize I am feeling panic. I recognize I am feeling disgust. And if you notice with the statements that I've done so far, it's I recognize I. So there's two I's in that sentence. There's the I who's the recognizer, and there's the I who's in the experience. The I who is watching the I having the feeling. I hope that makes sense, and it's kind of almost like it feeds into the whole mindfulness philosophy. This idea that we are more than just our thoughts. We are more than just our feelings. If all we are is a bunch of like electrical signals going off here, there and everywhere, where does free will come into it? And if we don't have free will, then like, why are we even trying? So this idea that we have this consciousness, we have this awareness that we can watch ourselves and we can choose where to put our attention. So it's a little bit like if you learn an instrument, your brain and body doesn't know how to do that. So you have to keep practicing, you keep putting your attention onto learning the instrument, you grow new neural networks, and now you've got the skill of learning an instrument. where it's trickier with body image compared to learning an instrument. When you learn an instrument, that new knowledge is not conflicting with any old knowledge. Whereas when you're trying to develop practice in the way you think about your body, it's conflicting with the old thinking and the old feelings, which is why it's trickier and perhaps takes a bit longer. So you've done you recognise you're looking in the mirror, you've recognised your feelings, then you want to go like, what are you believing? So I recognise I am believing I look awful. I recognise I am believing I look fat. And then as part of the beliefs, I like to go to, I recognise I am telling myself, and then finish it off. Because I recognise I'm believing I'm fat. You know, that's gonna, what are you telling yourself about that belief? That's what's really important. Because some people might look at themselves and say, yeah, I'm fat, and don't have the same emotional response. So it could be, I recognise I'm telling myself that I am disgusting. I recognise I'm telling myself I'm out of control. So then if you look at those things you've identified you're believing and what you're telling yourself, is it any wonder that you're feeling panic and disgust? Like, how could you not, if that's what you are telling yourself? But it's recognising it's what you're telling yourself, not some kind of absolute truth. Because when you're telling yourself it, you think you're telling yourself something that's true. And it's not. This is just a thought that you've had many times. And chances are you're not having many new thoughts about your body if you've been struggling with body image. It'll be the same thoughts that come up again and again. And a lovely little technique that I'll just share with you quickly is a Gabrielle Bernstein one. She talks about forgiving the thoughts. And so it's like you have a thought that comes up. Let's say the thought is, I hate the way I look. And then you catch the thought, you recognise the thought, you've seen that you're having this thought, and then you forgive the thought. So you're not forgiving yourself for having the thought, because people get frustrated when they're doing thought work and they're trying to change their thoughts, and when the old thinking comes back, they get annoyed with themselves. But thoughts, they physically exist as matter in the brain. These are neural networks that are bound together. So the fact that something's happened that's fired a network, like there's no morality in that. It's like how we choose to respond to our thoughts. That's the part where we have some influence, and that's the part where change occurs. So if you're having the thought that I hate my body, and you catch it and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to forgive the thought. I have that thought a lot, so I'm just going to forgive it. And then the idea of attention, awareness, consciousness, where do I want to put that attention? What would I prefer to think instead? So rather than thinking like, I hate my body, it might be too hard to just go to I love my body. I'm not suggesting an opposite, but rather every time you think I hate my body, you forgive the thought and you think, I want to learn to be comfortable in my body. It's quite a neutral thought. You're not saying that something is one thing or another. You're just resetting your intention. You're recognizing that that thought is going to serve you so much better than that old thought of I hate my body. It's not saying, oh, my body's great, my body's fine, because if you don't believe that, it's not going to have any kind of, it's not going to stick, you know. When thoughts have a lot of emotions around them, the brain pays attention to them. And that's why those neural networks are stronger. So that's why, like, the more distressed you become about your body image, the more thoughts you have about it, the more distressed you become. And it becomes this cycle. And the only way we can break the cycle is with awareness and is with reminding ourselves that it's not our body that's the problem. Like, if you think of yourself, if your belief is that you are too fat, like, when was the first time you had that thought? For a lot of people, like, they'll look back at the first time they had that thought in old photos or whatever it might be, and they'll be like, why was I thinking that then? You know, this whole, because when you're having the thought, your brain tries to come up with a solution, and the solution is, well, then I should lose weight. If I'm feeling fat and I feel uncomfortable about feeling fat, then the solution is I'm losing weight. Oh, I need to lose weight. But that's another, that's another thought that probably isn't serving you. If you've had that thought for a long time and it's only making your relationship with food worse, then that is a thought that's not serving you. So hopefully there's some ideas and new ways perhaps of thinking about this, but ultimately this doesn't have to be hard work, but it does take time. It does take a willingness to be present. a willingness to feel a bit uncomfortable at times, and just a commitment to like watching yourself. And the thing is, we want to reach for distractions. A lot of the time we don't want to watch ourselves, especially if we don't like the thoughts. But the answer is we have to watch ourselves. Like, if we want to learn anything new or develop a new skill, like thinking about things differently, we have to be willing to put our attention on it and put some time on it. So we want to reach for our phones, we want to reach for food, we want to reach for watch TV, we want to do anything to distract ourselves. And none of those things like in and of themselves are bad, but it's how are we using them and why? Because if we're using them to keep escaping ourselves, nothing's going to change. So on that note, I'm going to draw this video to a close, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye bye.